not warm at all. Welcome to a front-wheel drive BMW. Now, BMW really likes their controversial things. They tend sometimes to like to just piss off the purists intentionally, it seems, and no better example could be made of that than their first front-wheel drive based platform. Now I say first because technically there's been the X1, the second generation X1 I believe is front-wheel drive based, and the new third generation as well. And this is a 2 Series technically, which everybody is saying it's not a real 2 Series. The 2 Series is a rear-wheel drive coupe. It's not a front-wheel drive based hatchback. But those people don't know that in Europe, BMW sells a car called the 2 Series Active Tourer, which is a really, really weird name. I think they call them MPVs over there. They're like basically taller hatchbacks, not quite crossovers, but too big to be hatchbacks. They're just taller. And the 2 Series Active Tourer, I believe that's their first front-wheel drive based car. And that's been in Europe for probably 10 years or more now. This is nowhere near the first, but everybody's treating it like the first. It's gotten a lot of hate. Understandably, I mean, you can kind of see where the hate is coming from. BMW is known for being a pure brand for driving enjoyment. That's what they market themselves as. And they've always been more of a premium brand for, you know, how should I say this in a nice way? Confident businessmen who have troubles with their index finger, if you guys know what I mean, turn signals. BMW and Mercedes have decided we would like to sell more cars to a wider market. So Mercedes also came out with the A-Class, another front-wheel drive based sedan, and the CLA, which is like a more stylish version of that, more swoopy and streamlined. And then BMW comes out with the 2 Series Gran Coupe, which everybody, including myself, thinks Gran Coupe is kind of a dumb name, but they've been using that name for probably a decade now. I don't think it's going to go away. I'm calling it. I need my gloves. Okay, back to it. For a multitude of very good reasons, the 2 Series Gran Coupe has received a lot of hate. It's a lot of blowback. It's really controversial. A lot of people don't like it. But I mean, standing here next to it in person, in the metal and paint and rubber, I actually really like the look of the 2 Series Gran Coupe. Alright, so let's talk about the styling. Now, I don't think the styling of this car has been too controversial. It's just the car itself. What do we have? Oh no! They mounted the engine the wrong way. It's a BMW. It's supposed to go longitudinally. Why did they mount it like this? Overall, I really, really like how this car looks because it's a bit more streamlined, a bit more maybe modern, dare I say, looking. And the small size of the car, plus the sort of teardrop shape, makes it look a little bit more sporty, a little more aerodynamic and functional, which I really like. The front of the car is definitely decent and good looking, if you ask me. Yes, it has big grills. At least they're the right shape now. The hood itself isn't too long, which sometimes kind of throws off the proportions. I like this strip of chrome going down the side along the windows. Makes it look a little bit more premium and luxurious. It's got the classic shark fin antenna on top, which I've always loved. Around the back is kind of the weak spot. It's like they were left with a shape that they didn't really like, so they tried to overcompensate for that bad shape on the back end by just adding too much stuff. But overall, on the outside, I've always really liked the look of this car. Even in M Sport trim, it's not over the top either, but it's definitely noticeably different. Let's talk about what you get for your money. So the base 2 Series Gran Coupe that is being sold in the United States is the 228i, which is front-wheel drive. Now, that is very controversial. I don't like the idea of a front-wheel drive BMW either, but it's too late for that. They can't exactly pull it off the market. So we're just going to try to enjoy it while it's here. Then there is this car, the 228i X-Drive, which is all-wheel drive, of course. And then on the top, there is the M235i, which has a 2-liter turbo 4 that makes 305 horsepower. Now, I have always kind of thought that M235i is kind of cool because it's always that something about paying the same amount for a smaller car due to its higher performance versus a larger car with slightly less performance. So for the money of an M235i, you could probably get a pretty decent 330i 3 Series. But people that don't do that and they get the M235i, I just think it's interesting because it's not the obvious smart choice. But one important thing to note is that this shares its platform with the European 1 Series. For the American viewers, yes, we had a 1 Series during the later 2000s, which ended up turning into the regular 2 Series, but ever since I think 2003, 2004, BMW has sold a Volkswagen Golf rival known as the 1 Series. The first 2 generations were rear-wheel drive based, which is really, really cool, but for somebody that is buying it as their only car and as a daily commuter, rear-wheel drive doesn't make a lot of sense as opposed to front-wheel drive. You're making way too many sacrifices, and most regular consumers that would buy the 1 Series probably wouldn't care, and they'd honestly rather have their car be better in the snow and things like that, which front-wheel drive is. So this is based on the 1 Series, and it goes along with the 1 Series. Like there's a 128i, there's an M135i. So I have always loved the European 1 Series, and I've always wanted one, but hatchbacks don't really sell well in the United States. So the best thing we could get was sort of like a Hyundai Accent-ish shaped thing. I would have rather had the hatchback, but at least we get something close to what the 1 Series is. So we know that the point of this car is usability, daily driver. You know, it's got to be cheap to buy, cheap to run, but you still get the badge and everything, and hopefully some nice materials and a decent driving experience. But again, it's supposed to be used every single day. So why don't we start in the usual place by talking through practicality. We're going to see how much storage is underneath this hatch here, which I think is a hatch. Okay, you learn something new every day. The 2 Series Gran Coupe is a sedan. It really looks like it should be a hatchback considering the teardrop shape that this thing has. It's a kind of strange trunk opening. It's nice and wide, which is what you want, but it's really, really narrow. I mean, from the bottom of the back window to the start of the bumper is like maybe 4 inches, and it almost looks like two-dimensional, like it's a window or a pass-through or something. But it's definitely a decent livable width storage area. There's nothing interesting in this trunk back here. Again, it's more for a purpose, or it doesn't need to have anything special back here, but I do have a storage net, underfloor storage, which is quite shallow. It's barely enough to hold the car's own floor mats. And a really nice practical feature, releases for the back seats, so they fold down. They don't fold down automatically. You do still have to kind of push something through to push the seats down, but honestly, it's really, really nice to have fold down rear seats because there's so much opportunity for extra stuff that you can put in here that fold down rear seats allow. So that's a really nice thing. It's just a shame that it's not a hatchback, but oh well. And there's no toolkit anymore. Okay, so this is a car you're going to be using every day. You want to be able to put your kids or your friends in the back. So let's see how these lovely Sensatech fake leather, I think it's fake leather, seats and the front wheel drive layout help aid rear seat room. So let's see if it's comfortable. Woo! Ow! I closed the door on my... Alright. Okay. Okay, okay, alright, okay. Alright, it really speaks for itself, really, doesn't it? So, I've got absolutely negative amounts of headroom. That's partly because of this sunroof. I'm the one that kind of gets screwed over by it because the whole ceiling kind of dips down for it, and that's where my head is, so I can't really fit. If I try to move back, I still have no headroom. This is in my driving position. I'm 6'3", in case anybody forgot. And I've got no leg room, but it's not awful like the headroom is, but it's not good either. So the back seat of this car is obviously for kids. Let's just clarify that right off the bat. It's still nice that it has a fold down center armrest with cup holders, and even more nice is the fact that it has vents back here. No climate controls, but vents, and that's pretty cool. And 2 USB-C ports, so your kids can charge their iPads or whatever they have. There's definitely cheap feeling plastic everywhere. I mean, this is not BMW quality back here, let's just say that. I feel, when I touch all the materials and things, I feel like I'm in the back of a Nissan Versa and not a BMW of any kind. I do like the design of the door panels, the speakers and everything. It definitely had some nice design going into it. It just sucks that everything feels cheap and crappy. But that's about what I expected from the cheapest car that they make. I can't say I'm shocked, but I can still say I'm a little disappointed. Let's squeeze myself back out of here. One other interesting thing is that the windows are pillarless, which is kind of cool. So when you shut the door, the window goes up to form a seal against the body, which is always a really satisfying thing to watch. Pillarless doors are a little bit more sporty, a little bit more premium looking and cool, so at least we have that. But the problem with the back seats of this car is that as soon as you're in, you want to get out. The front seat of the 2 Series Gran Coupe is so much better than the back seat. It kind of feels nice and cozy, which I like. These seats have adjustable thigh support, which is really cool, so I can be even more comfortable. And they're power operated, in this car at least, which is really nice. That's what you'd want. Sorry, enthusiasts, automatic transmission only, but it is pretty clear that none of the enthusiasts actually like this car, so they didn't need to bother worrying about that. I've got a little storage area here with 1 USB-C port, the same cup holders with the tabs in them that I like. I've even got a wireless charger here, which is really cool. Then moving up, I've got the same physical buttons for the climate control and the radio, because this is iDrive 7, not iDrive 8. One thing that's nice about iDrive 7 is the fact that these radio preset buttons can be programmed for anything, and just hovering over the button with your finger tells you what it's programmed to, which I've always loved and everybody pretty much loves. The climate controls buttons are still actual buttons and not just integrated into a stupid submenu. And it does, this whole area does seem like it's clear that it looks a lot like the same kind of dashboard infotainment area as the larger 3 Series, but kind of like a more basic, cheaper feeling version of it, which isn't what you'd really want. But if you're thinking of buying one of these, just don't look at the inside of a 3 Series, because then you'll kind of see where you're kind of getting cheaped out on. iDrive 7 is nothing really special by modern standards, but it is definitely, for 5-6 years ago, is one of the best infotainment systems you can get. Now iDrive 7 is definitely showing its age, and it's been replaced with the far superior, except for the climate control menu, iDrive 8. I do like this material here on the dashboard, and overall it is a nice looking interior. It's just, it does give off 3 Series that I couldn't afford vibes. Again, none of the materials feel very nice in here. It all just kind of feels like a bunch of cheap, crappy plastic. It's really easy to find. I don't think that's acceptable even for the cheapest BMW. It's just a cheap plastic everywhere. It definitely feels like it's built to a budget, which is never something that you want. I do have a heated steering wheel, which is nice, especially in this 20-degree weather that we're in right now, and heated seats and everything, so it's easy to feel comfortable while you're driving it. It's just, don't touch anything, because you'll be disappointed and upset and feel like you got screwed by a much cheaper car. All right, so it's time to drive the 2 Series Gran Coupe. First, a quick rev test. Enjoy. Ah yes, the sound of a 2-liter 4-cylinder. Can't expect too much, so let's drive. Again, this is a daily driver usable car, so we're gonna do an extra thorough test of maneuverability here. And this thing is so easy to maneuver in parking lots and things. It's an absolute breeze, which is what you should expect for a car of this size. This turning circle is, I'm just going around in circles. I'm gonna start feeling sick here in a minute. Parking, since for some reason this parking lot is now crowded with cars, usually it's an empty spot, but today for some reason there's some stupid Christmas party thing going on. So park it in this space here. Now we're going in at a pretty tough angle. You normally want to go in at a less steep angle than this, but again, it's really nice. And parking sensors, which are always really nice. On the camera here, it shows me a camera image of the rear. It shows me parking sensor feedback from the front. It's definitely good. Now the one complaint that I do have, the windshield up front and the A-pillar and this speaker that kind of comes down in the mirror, it just gives you a very big blind spot, which you don't want looking out front. Let's try backing in, making life extra hard for myself. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so parking this thing is a breeze. That's what you want. If this car sucked at parking, it would just suck regardless. This is now the newest car that I've ever driven. That X6 had 50 miles on the odometer. This has 41. But this is a much cheaper car. It looks it feels it, and it shows on the window sticker. It is definitely a much cheaper car than that X6, and it feels it. I still find the 2 Series Gran Coupe to be a really, really charming little car. There's just something about it. It's quite mini-esque. I think this car's got a definite amount of character to it, which I really like. The quality in here, even the smell, is giving off economy car vibes to me. It's just, I had a Nissan Versa in May, and this thing is reminding me more of that than the 330i that I drove last month, which is not a good thing. All right, it's the 228i X-Drive, 228 horsepower. Let's see how hard it moves. Yeah, obviously tuned more for comfort and economy than it is for performance. That kickdown felt slower than I would want it to be. But as a daily driver, kind of cheap, getting your foot in the door of the brand option, I really can't complain about the way it drives. I mean, it definitely is faster than you might think with like the cheapest, bare bones, bottom of the line car, at least in the United States, that you can buy from BMW. You'd expect it to be slow as a dog, but it's quick. Honestly, it does feel decently quick. Now, it's not enough to set your pants on fire. It's not enough to, get you laughing like a little kid. It's enough to get you out onto the highway, on your way to your startup business meeting. You're a 2 Series Gran Coupe owner. You're just starting off your business. You're not quite successful yet, but you've got aspirations. You want to make it in the big business world. And this is good for getting you to your meetings on time. What can I say about regular daily drivability? Well, it rides quite nicely. You definitely hear a lot of wind noise. You definitely do feel the road below and bumps that you go over. It could be more comfortable, but I think it's comfortable enough. Let's try manual mode here. Now, the biggest complaint that I have right now with this car is the fact that there's no paddle shifters on the wheel, which is always a big disappointment for automatic cars. So you have to use the shifter, which is, okay, but when you put it in manual mode, wow, okay. It felt like a different car there. It went harder than it did before. At least it feels like it. When you put it in manual mode, it really tightens up those shifts, makes it feel a lot sportier, which is good. But again, it's just manual mode with a little tiny kind of dinky little stubby shifter down here, which I don't like, so I would probably never use that if I owned this car. If it had paddle shifters, I definitely would use those a lot more often. There's nothing really sporty about the way this car drives. It's definitely quick. I think it's definitely a fun car to drive. I can't say anything bad about spirited driving in this car. It's definitely enjoyable. This thing would be awesome with a manual, but again, everybody who wants a manual out of their BMW hates BMW for making a front-wheel drive based car, so if they made a manual, they probably wouldn't sell a single one. I enjoy driving it, but overall it's about driving it every day, and it definitely feels like a luxury-esque economy car. Heated steering wheel is very nice indeed. Ooh, yes. What about handling? Especially in the front-wheel drive car, it's not going to have that push you out of a corner feel that BMWs are known for. So it's not going to be that enjoyable on a twisty canyon road, but every day it's just fine. It's quiet. It's just too bad that all these materials feel so crappy, but it's quiet. I've got a nice heated steering wheel, a heated seat, and easy to understand controls over here, a decent enough infotainment system. There's nothing really special about how this car drives, and that's what you'd expect. To drive this thing, I don't have any complaints, especially where it sits in their lineup. I think it's a good place to start for most people that want to get into the brand. Overall, that's, I think, what this car is for. This is definitely a really compelling start for people. Overall, I'd say good car. Definitely a good car. So that's going to do it for me, everybody, on this video. Again, thank you to BMW of Murray for lending me this car. It's really amazing that they do this, even on the cheapest car that they sell. I am still so grateful for what they do. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye-bye.